I am unashamed. What about you?
So welcome back to Unashamed. Jase is still out on assignment. We sent him out to find some stories and make up some stuff, as he's fond of doing.
He's good at doing that
He's
too.
good. He's good at doing that. So we had Cy and Stone on the last podcast. We traded them for an upgrade in beauty. And we have Lisa and Mom, Miss Kay, on the podcast today, joining Dad and I. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
The Unashamed audience loves them when the ladies are on, so we consistently hear that. So Lisa and I were just in Indiana this last week, and I don't know how many told me how much. I know you hear it a lot, babe.
Yeah.
That they love it when y'all are on the podcast.
Sometimes they want to see a face without a hair.
Yeah.
Right?
That is true. That's exactly right. And since I've been keeping a little on my face lately, so it's nice to have that on.
And we pluck ours, so we try not
Shave
to have
it,
any.
too.
Yeah.
If I can't see it, I just shave it off.
So, Dad, they like to get the tweezers after theirs.
Yeah, there's women have a penchant for doing a lot of plucking, like plucking chicken feathers.
Yeah,
every little
I've done a lot of that.
A lot of
a
plucking.
wayward whisker over here. Got to get it.
Gotta get it. Gotta get it out of there.
If I saw them plucking chickens when I was growing up, I ran for the treehouse I had.
Did you ever actually pluck chickens during your cooking
I actually
career?
plucked ducks with my dad, but I didn't fool them chickens with their dead head hanging over.
Yep.
No, I didn't like that.
And you didn't actually really have to pluck ducks either, because Dad, we always plucked our own ducks.
Yeah,
growing
but
up.
my dad would kill ducks sometimes. He was more of a deer hunter,
Yeah.
but he did kill ducks too, and quail.
Yeah, and you would help with that. And you never did you, babe? You never helped
No.
clean any
I had to hold the squirrels' tails.
Now, I did squirrels.
Yeah,
for your dad.
She picked ducks and held the squirrel eggs.
Did you hold them for Dad too when you
Yeah.
were? Yeah.
My dad wasn't a duck hunter, though, so I didn't do ducks. I only did squirrel and deer. I did help with deer, too.
Oh yeah, you like that gutting of the deer, right?
No.
Now, Dad used to clean deer inside the
Oh, don't remind me, Alan.
inside the apartment
At Louisiana Tech,
because
yeah.
it was out of season, I assume, probably.
That puts you safer behind closed doors.
Hanging from our lighting from the ceiling.
It's funny because I was a little kid, but I can still remember that. And of course, there's a certain smells when you're cleaning a deer. It's not exactly the best, and you'd smell that in the house.
The dean of men of the university finally called me in and said, if people watch you and see what you're doing, it's just not very scholarly. and the road you live on is called what? Scholar what? I said, Scholar Drive. He said, you're not very scholarly, Mr. Robertson. Get all that bolts and all this trash and the dead guts and duck feathers. That's down there at your apartment. It's not scholarly.
You know what else he had in the living
So
room?
they were worried about my vibes, never knowing that once I left that prestigious university, I never had to fall back on it, but I went to the woods and did a lot better than I would have teaching school for 20 years.
Well, I will say,
At
Dad,
about $25,000 a year.
I will say that the night that I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the podcast. So the night that they notified you that you were going to be receive the 2014 alumnus of the year, which was every year they let some famous alumni of the year, they let them know that you've been deemed this person. And so we were there. Bradshaw was there that night, and they had a little thing honoring you and him at the same time. But you were the 2014, and you did notice and told the president of the university and others that it was ironic that you redeemed this, and yet there was a point in time where you really were not seen as a person that probably would ever be awarded
No.
Yeah,
as the alumnus of anything,
That's right.
And so you did kind of notice that,
I think they had begun to notice my bank account. And that's when the carpet was spread out in front of me.
The red carpet.
Well, what Bradshaw say, Phil? All they want
all
is a
they
check.
want's a check. That's what he said. It was so funny. So I tell this story sometimes when I go on the road, and I love telling it because the way you said it, they were laughing as you were telling it, but it was one of those kind of laughs that's like a nervous laugh. Like they were laughing, but it was like, is he being serious or is he joking? But like most satirical stories, there was a bit of truth in your humor as you were telling it, because it was like, no, I realize now that I'm famous and on television, I realize why you're telling this. But at the time I was here, the accolades were heaping on old Phil.
No.
In fact, the way you put it, you said most of the people around me at that time said I was some kind of idiot.
Yeah.
Now I'm a genius, But you were just being truthful. I mean, I find it ironic that you were just speaking truth into it, and it made them kind of nervous. Because most people want to just like say, oh, yeah, thank you so much for this thing. But you were just being honest. I mean, and Bradshaw said all they want is a check, and that's true. I mean, that really is kind of how the game is played, right?
Yep.
I mean, once you're wealthy, you say, here's a check.
But I don't hold it against him.
No, and you were being funny, and it was very funny. It was a funny night. So Mom and I went and accepted your award
Yep.
because you had a scheduling conflict and weren't able to go. So Mom and I were able to go and accept on Dad's behalf, and so we did. Because if they would have let Dad preach the gospel, he'd have gone, but apparently they don't do that on college campuses anymore. But look, I've said it before, and I do it all over the country. There's a picture of Dad, and it's hanging down there at Tech, and it's on a wall because Louisiana Tech's been around a long time.
Hall of Fame.
It's a Hall of Fame. It's called the Hall of Alumni Fame. And so I didn't realize Tech's been around since the 1800s.
It's an old university.
Old university. So there's been a person recognized from the very beginning. So this goes way back. So there's all kinds of people, and a bunch of them I recognize, famous people, country singers, Carl Malone, Bradshaw, all these people you recognize, and business people. And I looked on the whole thing. Of course, Dad was his picture is the most unique, with the beard and all that. But nobody else mentioned the name of Christ on their plaque except for Dad. A couple of them mentioned faith, was mentioned in their little write-up. But only one had Christ, servant of Christ, and that was Dad. So I tell people that makes me proud because, like, that's truly what makes you worthy of being on the wall.
I actually became a follower of Jesus after I left Tech.
Exactly.
But it was a seed bed of whatever.
Yeah, you were a bad boy at Tech.
Yeah, but they wasn't for Jesus, and I wasn't either.
Right.
At the time. But they were looking post-education, and I guess they thought, well, it is what it is.
Well, and let's face it, that's how they recognize you. They recognize you for the first two things on the plaque because you were on TV and because you're known for being a duck call, person.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is pretty powerful. Which is, Mom, that's where you got your high school education at Ruston High School.
And a real diploma, thank you.
You did. Oh, I was going to I forgot to bring your, yesterday we were at your house and laying on the counter, I was going to bring it over here, was your
report card.
Your report card, which I guess was that just
junior high.
Recently found. It was your 7th and 8th?
8th grade.
7th and 8th grade report card. Somebody just found it.
I was impressed. She showed it to me. I was impressed on how many A's were there.
A lot of A's and B's.
A lot of A's and B's.
I was a brown noser. My teachers loved me. But
only a few C's.
the C people didn't, I couldn't do nothing with them.
I noticed your C's were concentrated in mostly math, which is understandable, and social studies, a couple of C here and there.
Well, I know. It's just on the part I didn't like there, but
There were a couple of interesting things I thought was interesting on there from this era. I guess it was it had like of course it had your parents' name. It had like what church you went to.
Oh.
Which I thought, I guess things are a little different in the 50s and 60s because it was 59, 60, I think were the years. Like what church you went to.
It was part of your education back then.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And I lament that because I thought, well, that's interesting. It said, first.
I noticed it too.
Yeah, I had a
had
First Baptist.
Church.
Yeah, I didn't know that was in there either.
I didn't either. I thought that was interesting. See, I'm looking at it now. And then it had your parents' name and occupation. And has your mom down as a housewife.
Yeah.
And your dad was a merchant and a planter.
Yep.
Which was pretty good. Now, what does that mean, a planter?
Well, he bought land on Red River where they plant all the cotton and stuff.
And farmed it, on the side.
Yeah.
Okay, so it had that mentioned. Now, has your doctors mentioned? Is that just in case you had some kind of emergency?
Yeah, but back then, doctors would even make house calls. Dr. Dupree, who was my doctor at the time.
Yeah, he's on here.
He actually would come to your house. He lived in another town.
Oh, really?
But they did that.
And then your Dr. Ferguson was your dentist. He's mentioned.
Yeah, he's a nice dentist. I just hated going to the dentist.
Well, so if you had like a dental emergency, I guess you would have to go.
Yes.
To see him. Yeah, you had to.
But you're right. I wouldn't have thought they'd have put that kind of.
On your report card.
Yeah.
I just found that interesting. I mean, that's just, you'd never see that today. No. That'd be way too much information, personal information.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they wouldn't allow it.
HIPAA wouldn't let you, you couldn't do that with HIPAA these days.
I was trying to look at some of your courses. So you had home living.
That's home economics.
Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which you had mostly A's, but I see a couple of B's in there. I would have thought you'd been straight A's in that because you're kind of.
It was probably the sewing part.
Yeah. The whole thing I made fell apart. It was supposed to be a blouse, and I couldn't even wear it because it started coming undone when I put it on.
Yeah.
Now, you had straight B's in music and one C. So you weren't really a musical.
Misbehaved one day making jokes or something. And music wasn't my best either.
Physical ed, though, you had all S's.
I was there.
Whatever that means.
Probably that I showed up.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I'm not athletic. Just the opposite. If I'm going to try that, I'll be hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So one other thing I thought was interesting about that is that this was right before you met Dad, because I was figuring out your age here.
Yeah.
And this you'd have been about 12 or 13. So this was right before your dad. Yeah, this was right before your dad died and right before you met Dad.
That's right.
So this was kind of the last of quote unquote normal life before really everything changed big.
Oh, yeah.
Last of the innocents.
Yeah.
Because you were about to go through a big life change right after this.
Yeah.
Right when
I wasn't expecting all that to change like that.
I mean, that was kind of huge, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, they make movies about that kind of stuff.
They do. Yeah, we're about to. What do you think about that, man?
Yeah, I'm excited. They have me so young and pretty.
And they were saying
I might have been back then.
How good the actress is. And she's a Brit who plays you during this period of time.
Yeah. And, that's really funny. I can hardly speak English, and yet a British is playing me messing up the English language.
Well, the Brits do speak English. You did know that, right?
Well, yeah, but you can't hardly understand. There's some proper English. It's
I just want you to know that it is the same language that we speak.
It's more proper.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
I have made the charge before that Sister Robertson there she knows how to butcher the English language.
She does.
I wouldn't talk about it because our previous life on Duck Dynasty, they love when I wreck words.
Oh, yeah.
Butchered them and everything else.
Norm Crosby made a living of it.
They said, keep doing it.
That's right. All right, let's take a break. So, Dad, I don't know if your house is like my house, but there are a lot of packages that show up at my house. Do you have a lot of packages show up at your house?
Trust me when I tell you, more than your house.
I doubt that.
I don't know, Dad. That would be a lot. I don't know. I can't imagine Mom getting as many as so.
No.
We back and forth because we have two places. We have the Southern Lair as well as our house here, and so every time we show up, how many How many packages? And you give it. I'm not saying you would give a dishonest answer, but how many boxes are there when we show up at the Southern Lair, because we're usually away? How many are there at the front door, or sometimes our neighbors put them inside for us? But how many are typically there when we arrive?
I would say probably at least 7.
Okay, maybe. There's usually a little mountain
Yeah.
of boxes.
To both
you
your
know-
houses?
Yeah. Well, no,
That's just there. Then we come back home and there's that many or more.
I'm not the only one at my house in West Monroe that orders either. So
Well, so sometimes I get things related to the podcast, and one of the things that I do get that I love is from one of our sponsors called Bespoke Post, and it's the Box of Awesome is what they call it, and so those come once a month, and so I signed up for it, and it comes. It's basically just a little surprise package.
Yeah.
Because, most of the things that Lisa gets, she's ordered. So although I have to say, since she orders so much stuff, it is almost a surprise because she's forgotten.
it is. I forget what I order.
But in this case, I don't know. So I go to boxofawesome.com, I take a quiz, and I just kind of let them know the kind of things that I like. Outdoor stuff. There's stuff for the grill, if you like that. If you like camping or hiking and those golf, exactly. So I like pocket knives and I like knives. So I get a lot of really cool knives.
Oh, that is cool.
That are really great.
It's made from my side.
And I share some of those with Dad and Jace as well. And so it comes every month. There's a lot of different categories. Each box is valued at about $70, but you're only going to pay a fraction of that. You're also supporting small business. I like that because, Mom, we started with a small business.
We did.
And we have people that supported us. 90% of everything that comes in your Box of Awesome is from a small up-and-coming brand. It's free to sign up. You can skip a month. You can also cancel at any time, so you're not locked into any long-term deal. So if for any reason you want to get out, you can. You get 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com. Enter the code PHIL at checkout, PHIL. So that's boxofawesome.com. Use the code PHIL. You get 20% off your first box, boxofawesome.com. Use the code PHIL. And try to keep up with your wife with your packages.
That's right.
It's like Christmas every other week, though.
That's right. Once a month. I love it. You got the idea. Yeah, so I want to talk about that because that's interesting. That is, of course, the movie, from what I understand, none of us have seen it. So I may be...
Well, we've seen
Snippets.
snippets.
Just a snippet or two. And from my understanding of it, it covers some of your childhood,
Yep.
or more, I guess, Dad and his childhood. And then it picks up during this period where your teenage years, when you first meet Dad.
Yep.
And then it goes into the college years and when I'm born. And then it kind of goes into young adult life, which is the bulk of the movie. So that was one of the things I was going to ask y'all, and Lisa and I can kind of speak to this too, is because we get this question a lot about the kind of the pros and cons of like growing up together. Because in the Robertson family, most of us married young. I mean, you guys were even younger than any of us. Not necessarily married, but together.
Yeah.
And but we've all stayed married and had difficulties, but we've all stayed married. And I mean, the way I explain it to people is we kind of grew up together. We were immature. We certainly had problems, but we've managed. And so I want to talk about that a little bit, kind of from y'all's perspective, and then we can speak to that as well. But what was it like to grow up basically together? Because you were just kids when you met. I mean,
Well, what pushed it together was the death of her dad, combined with the behavior of her mother and what she did because of that. So it was like, so.
Well, Mother did. See, we were dating at the same time. And when I had to be home, she wasn't there. And sometimes she didn't come home at all. So, I mean, here.
because she kind of lost it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, when she was, because she was quite a bit younger than, your dad was only 48,
49.
49.
She was 42 when
Okay.
he died.
And so, and then she just kind of went,
She remarried before a year.
right. And then she kind of just like lost her way, right? Is
Right.
that when,
I think she She did it because back then women were so dependent on their husbands, they couldn't even write a check. He wrote the check, gave her the money, did everything. And I think she was so afraid.
She didn't really know how to take care of herself, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And they felt like they had to have a man to support them and, protect them and everything like that. And I think that's why I wound up so much more alone. And then when Phil was not only my boyfriend, but he was like my protector and everything. I'd have been by myself at that house, wouldn't I, Phil?
Yep.
And had y'all started dating before he died?
Well, yeah, he
Yes,
won't remember this. Let me tell it right. We dated. We liked each other, and a girl hooked us up. Told me he wanted me to walk him off the field. Told me
Which I think this is in the film, I think.
Yeah, he wanted me to walk him off the football field that night, and she told Phil that I asked if I could walk him off the field. So she set us up.
You had a little setup person.
But it worked. That's the main thing, that it worked. And for them, and we dated my freshman year, 14, all that. But then for some stupid reason, Phil said I was interfering with his hunting season so that we would have to not date because he didn't have time for a girl during the hunting season. You don't remember that, do you?
I remember.
Okay. So we were, so I was waiting for him to come back after hunting season, and then he started fishing and all that, and I was like, well, whatever. So, but when we actually went back together was the funeral of my dad, and I had a whole bunch of classmates that came to the funeral. But I remember when he came by and walked, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and then, he went by the body and went on out. And so when it was over, I went up to tell him, thank you, for coming. And it just all started back again, didn't it?
Yep.
He realized he loved me.
So here we sit through all the years. Was it worth it?
64 years dating and married.
Was it worth it?
Of course it was. This is a dream come true for me. I dreamed about somebody like a pioneer man, and I got one. I just didn't get the real deal till he became a Christian. I got the rough man.
But it was kind of forged in fire, so to speak, because it started in tragedy, and it was kind of him looking out for you, even at the beginning.
And see, my dad would have loved him because he was a hunter too and fisherman, and they would have had a lot in common.
But that probably also explains some of why you were drawn to Dad.
Well, it was almost like I became her dad.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The qualities you had is what she loved about her dad too. So,
Well, I held the squirrel legs. I picked duck feathers. Do we pick quails? I
Yep.
can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we did that because he was a big bird hunter, and he fished all that. And I helped with those releasing of the brim that you have to do this too. Yeah, I did all that with him. And sometimes I would go just on a right. He loved to just go to the bottoms, which is down the hill. Where we go down. The Red River's down there, isn't it?
Yep.
And that, he would just show me things and tell me things. And it's the first time I saw a bad, bad snake down there too. But it was just, we had time to do things like that. One day I rode with him to Texarkana, and we weren't going for any reason but just to look. We just looked. And then, of course, I saw a Dairy Queen. And we stopped there and, got some. But that were special memories of me and just me and my dad. Because, see, my sister was 8 years older than me. So I was kind of popped in there, not planned. But then I become, meant a lot to them because they didn't plan me, but they loved me.
right. And I think with us, I would say, we were married young.
Yeah.
And so even though there were, some struggles from early years, I think from immaturity, still there was something about sort of maturing together at the same time that had made it special. I don't know, how would you describe that?
I think so. I mean, I love that we were young together, we were middle-aged together, and now we're growing old together. I mean, it's just something about that, that
You know, looking back, it would look like it was about this long.
yeah.
It happened
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
You think about it, Al. Your whiskers are gray now.
They're white.
And you're talking about the years where you...
Well, it's almost been 40 years that Lisa and I have been together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Been married.
Yeah.
that seems fast.
It does. It seems very fast. But
Well, I remember him with a crew cut. How about that?
But I mean, I love those memories. I wouldn't change any part of them. The rough patches, I mean, if there was a way around that, sure, I would love, to not have to go through that. But they made us who we are, and they made our love what our love is. And so I wouldn't change anything. I mean, nothing about our life would I change.
Well, we were laughing about it because at one time when we were transitioning with houses and some of the things we have and the blessings we have, we were talking about when we first got married, we were living in the front bedroom at Granny and Paul's house.
Yep.
We didn't even have a house,
I remember it.
because
Yeah.
we decided to get married. I mean, I was a brand new Christian, and Lisa and I we were in love, and we were just like, why wait?
Yeah, that was kind of like a 1850 type deal.
Exactly. And Granny and Paul were there, and so I came to y'all, and I said, look,
Well, they can't hear anyway. So
they can't hear. And they were snoring every night. So I came to y'all and I was like, look, of course, the boys were still home. And so I had been living there too. And with y'all, and I was like, look, I mean, I love Lisa. And so I think I want to get married. We want to do the right thing. And we decided to be pure. But, I mean, we don't really have much going on. I was working for y'all. I said, but we want to get married. And y'all were like, go for it. And of course, her parents were like, yeah, y'all are crazy. You don't have anything. And of course, but y'all were like us. You were like, well, you just build it.
that's right. We didn't have anything either starting out. Lucky for us, though, that I came from a rich family that had a grocery store. And every time I went to visit, I brought us a box full of food back. Tried to get in as many steaks as I could get in there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The rich, though, it's always a, relative, because I always thought Lisa's family had a lot of money because they had a brick house. But looking back on it now, I was like, no, they just had jobs.
Yeah. We just
We just didn't have much. And so, like, everybody had money if they had a brick house. That was
Yeah,
like,
well, my nanny's house was the first brick house in Ida.
yeah. So it seemed like, man, they were rolling in it, right?
Yeah, they had the biggest business.
Well, if you were just doing that well in whatever endeavor you were doing in those days,
Yeah.
it didn't take a whole lot to live the good life.
That's right. And
I mean, things were cheap.
so anyway, we decided we were going to get married. Happened pretty quick. And Granny and Paul said, well, y'all just live in this front bedroom. And so we did. And then we got the little place next door.
The blue house?
Yeah, before it was blue. And that was the Lillo's camp. And y'all had tried to buy it, but he wouldn't sell it. And they came down. He didn't come down very often. And then his wife came down there one day, and she pulled a cushion up on that chair in the living room. It just had 2 rooms, had an outhouse out back.
Yeah.
They didn't have a bathroom.
Yeah.
And there was a big old chicken snake on that chair in the living room. And she hit that front door and never even worried about the steps. She did about 3 rolls and got in her car and left and told Mr. Lillo that she would never be back.
Yeah.
So he came down the next day and said he's ready to sell.
Yeah, the Lord works in mysterious ways.
We got married.
They're a chicken snake.
We got married, needed a place to live. The Lord sent a chicken snake in there
Yeah.
Yeah,
and got under that chair. And Miss Lillo said she would
that
never.
thing went up for sale after that.
Next day up for sale.
By the way, now it's being torn down by Jimmy Red, the redneck.
Because there ain't no telling what's living in
And
there
he
now.
says he can move what's left of that little building, move it up the road, and somehow or another put it on some logs and roll it to his place up there.
It's going to become part of his empire.
He's about 3/4 of a mile away, but that's going in.
How
That's
does that make you feel, babe? It'll go right to your family.
Yeah.
yeah. You're kin to him down through the. You're kin.
He's
to,
my nephew. Yeah.
There you go.
Well,
My brother's son.
it lives on.
Well, the building is still there.
Yeah.
He contacted somebody to move it because he knew he was going to have trouble with moving it. So they said, "Yeah, you give us $5,000, we'll move that house right on out there." And then he said, "Well, do you think I could borrow it from you?" And I'm like, no, that's ridiculous.
We just gave you the house.
I know we gave you a house. Now you want to pay for us moving it up to your house?
Yeah.
Well, we got a loan, and y'all co-signed it for us, and it was I can't remember what the original. We had to borrow $3,000. I guess it was $5,000, and then so that's what it originally cost, $5,000.
To us,
But our
and
first
y'all,
loan was
too, that was a-
It was
$8,500.
$8,500 because we had to borrow.
That was a lot of money in them days.
Oh, it was big money, and so we had to borrow $3,500 on top of the $5,000 to fix it up because we had to have a bathroom.
Oh yeah, they didn't. Yeah,
But they had an outhouse that was full of brown recluse spiders. Well, that's a bad deal. We got to use the bathroom. You talking about having to
I know.
tiptoe lightly through the
I had
tulips.
to do that in the back of our store. It didn't when it was that age.
You kind of tend to hover
Yeah.
when you're going to the bathroom when you're worried about a brown recluse spider, biting you. But so we had to so Hoot, Lisa's dad, he enclosed the front porch and built us a bathroom and a
Bathroom and a living room.
living room, and then we had
I peed more in the bushes than I have on commodes over my entire life.
Is that why some of the bushes died?
Maybe,
that's not too good on the landscaping situation around there.
but it's for what you said. These.
Well, the other
I
issue,
was raised where there was a toilet, little board building,
yeah,
about a couple of 100 yards from the house.
yeah.
That's where you went, to use the bathroom.
But other things lived it.
So males, they just get out in the bushes, take a leak.
Yeah, but the other issue at y'all's house was that you get out behind the house and the bushes out there, that's where the purple tail and the red wasps like to build a nest in there.
I'm telling
You
you.
got to be real easy around everything around there. Things tend to want to hurt you.
Plus, there was more than one snake killed in the toilet. It's just a board with a hole in it.
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
I think we trained our grandsons off the porch, didn't we? To pee off the porch.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
They loved it.
Yeah.
Of course,
And now they still try to do it sometimes.
It was always fun, who can out-pee the other one distance-wise.
Lord knows I didn't do any of that.
Well, it wouldn't be quite the same for the girls.
Yeah.
Okay, we've gone down a bad trail now.
Yeah, we did.
Get off Potty Works.
So that was our way, but it's so different now, Mom. You think about it. So now, to Dad's point, we've gotten at this point in our lives, our age. So this spring, 2 of your grandchildren are getting married.
Yeah.
So Lil Will is getting married next month,
Yes.
and then you got Lily,
Lily.
who's Jep's oldest.
Oldest one, she's about, 18, 19?
She's 21.
I don't think I didn't
Yeah.
know she was that old.
Well, I'm sure she's been in
She's
college.
been in college at
years.
least 2 years.
At least
2 years.
At
She's
least
at least
2 years.
20, so 20 or 21.
And they want to spend a few months, they said, down here right next to us. That's
what I heard.
In the trailer house over there.
Which is kind of continuing the tradition, which I thought was kind of cool because that's where we live.
And guess where he's from? California.
I know it. He's a good kid. I really
He
like him.
really is a great one. But I just don't know if he's ready for living with down next to us for 2 months. I think.
Yeah, I don't think they've been
They-
down there and visited that yet. So
Not yet.
yeah,
So what would
might
you,
have to hold on to that until they come for a visit.
so
Well, I
what,
did fix it up.
yeah, because Aunt Ann's been staying there, right?
Yeah.
So what sort of thing will y'all like trying to teach them? Because here's the 20-somethings. They're going to be with y'all. So what kind of
Well, I'm
life
figuring
lessons
on,
would you teach them?
I'm figuring on fattening him up for one thing because he loves my food. I mean, he will. I know where y'all.
He's a college athlete because he's a baseball player.
Yeah,
college.
he is.
So he'll love the cooking.
He will. He'll love that. Lily has a little eating thing, so she won't be eating. All
She's
our
tiny.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay, you'll have to start cooking again because you've just about quit cooking.
Yep. She's
So
not
you're
cooking-
going to have to start
You're not
cooking.
cooking.
You just gonna come in on this one.
She's not cooking as much as
Well,
she used
somebody else that cooked with me in the kitchen's not cooking like he used to either. Don't know who that is, but yeah, who makes the gumbo? Who makes the jambalaya?
You two are going to have to start cooking if you're going to have people down here staying with you.
Yeah. You know, it's something, you know, you get in, you going, when you start going toward 80, the menu begins to change.
It was the same with Granny. When she got about y'all's age, she didn't cook as much. Of course, y'all kind of took over.
Yep.
It's just kind of as you get older, but y'all don't eat as much either. So it's
Well,
kind of
some
not
people
near
do.
as
Some
much.
people do. Some people still eat a good bit. Some people, the skinnier people in our
Mom
house
says speak
don't.
for yourself.
Yeah.
Well,
You know, everybody said, oh, worry about getting heavy, worry about getting heavy. They came to me and they said, you need to gain some weight.
Yeah, we're having to do the opposite with Dad. We're having to fatten him up a little bit.
Yeah, women don't lose weight like that. They usually plump up and,
I can look at food and gain 2
Yeah.
pounds.
get a big behind.
I know of no other family, none, not even close, on the art of families still meeting together and eating together. I know of no other ones that tops us.
That's true.
Or as food stuff.
Well, and it's interesting because y'all are,
I mean, from barbecue to whatever.
and unfortunately for y'all, y'all are a little bit isolated because y'all still live out here. If y'all lived up with the rest of us in the neighborhood, you wouldn't have to worry about cooking because, I mean, our whole neighborhood is
Every
some of the
meal
best
y'all have, y'all usually have people there.
Oh, it's amazing. With some of the best cooks in West Monroe are all on our street, and y'all all trained
Yeah.
us. I mean, and now even my kids and the next generation of cooks.
Well, I was
are
so
amazing.
shocked when I ate Missy's meatloaf, and it was exactly as good as
That's
mine.
what I'm saying. It's amazing. Like,
And Jessica can cook too,
oh yeah,
and Jep likes to.
that's fantastic. Yeah,
And Jason will cook certain things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and he can cook them good too.
yeah.
And
Well, Alex makes your meatloaf too. It's amazing.
right.
It's just like so. Yeah, and like tonight she's cooking a pork roast, Italian style pork roast. I mean, so it's just like every night, you know, we're eating. So I wish y'all were there, but you're out here.
but at Corey's house now, Willie is cooking, and Corey is doing everything else, not cooking.
No, she didn't have to. No, that's true. But you know, it is pretty amazing. But you'll still. What other things would you teach? Would you tell them about relationship and marriage?
Yeah, we'll be
Important things.
teaching them a lot about marriage and forgiveness.
Yeah, staying together.
Yeah,
Grace.
Yeah, and don't
outreach toward their neighbor, you know.
Yeah,
Well, my grandmother taught me. We'd be sitting on the swing watching the cars go by. We waved at every car, whether you knew them or not. That's just what you did. And we were sitting out there talking about all kind of things. And see, she would tell me, well, when you marry now, it's for life. It's for one man and one woman for life. And I said, well, I think some people get divorced. And she said, well, you won't even use that word because you won't need to. You won't ever. And I mean, that was plowed into me like that one I retained. I really kept that one. Some things I didn't do so well at. But even in that, me and Phil we were together so much that it wasn't even really realistic. But like I say, my daddy passed away. My mama kind of had a little nervous breakdown and started drinking pretty heavy. And so I had problems there. But, you know, the thing is, I knew from Nenny that when I got my husband, it was going to be forever. Of course, I thought it'd be just never a problem. But that was a lie.
Well, when Lisa and I were just in Indiana, and it was kind of a Q&A style event, and one of the questions the guy asked us in front of this audience was, what advice would you give people about marriage? And instantly, Lisa said, well, tell them what you said about honesty, and then I'll tell what I said. Because, without even thinking, we instantly said, here are 2 things that we would do, and we'll tell what you said, and I'll tell what I said.
I just said openness and honesty because, there's lots of things that happen to us whenever we're younger, going, all the way up until we get married. And we go into a marriage with a lot of baggage. And our spouse needs to know what that baggage is. And we need to pull those bags out, and we need to talk about them, and we need to go through these things that we've been through, and we need to be able to heal from them, and not just hide all this stuff. Because the way you react to things has a lot to do with how you were raised. And if you're reacting to something in a negative way, then your spouse will recognize that because they know what you've been through. So they know your past. And, I just stated that honesty is one of the most important things. Yep. And even yesterday, I was talking to a girl by text that Al and I have been talking to her and her husband, who are going through some marriage problems. And I told her, I said, truth is sometimes hard to give because of feelings. But I said, look, feelings change. Truth is always the truth. And in order to build trust, and sometimes to build trust back, you have to be honest. Honesty is the most important thing. And that's the way it was in our marriage. I mean, honesty and openness, and to be open with everything. I have no secrets whatsoever from Alan anymore. He knows everything about my life. And so openness and honesty is one of the things that we teach that's the most important thing for a couple to do.
And so,
yeah, I never thought I would be getting to the age to where you have some advice and counsel with your grandchildren.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
You're like, whoa.
And yet they need it desperately, because where else would they get it?
That's 20 years, 21 years from birth to now. But actually, it's really not that long. I mean, but it just, and it's there.
But you think about that, where else would they get it? They're not going to get it from the school system.
Nope.
They're not going to get it from social media.
Nope.
Or friends.
Nope.
And so if it doesn't come from us, where will they get it? Right. And so that's what you have to be reminded of. And we notice that too. So I came immediately on the heels of Lisa saying that. And again, it was back to the sermon I preached Sunday, always be prepared to give an answer for the Hope Trail.
That was so good.
And
so there were 7 children in the Robertson clan. There's 2 of them left, Cy and me. Well, it's pretty interesting to note that none of them, there were 7 of us, but none of them ever bought cell phones. Mm-hmm. My family, the oldest one, Jimmy, Frank, Harold, Judy, Tommy, Jan, they're all gone. Sign out the last, we're the last ones left, and we don't have computers either. Why? The why, I have no idea. They just didn't fool with them.
Well, most of y'all were...
we started out, we never heard of them.
Most of y'all were pre-cell phone, but you're right. The last couple that could have just chose not to.
Chose not to.
Yeah.
Which that's kind of...
But you do.
I'm glad people have them, or they wouldn't be listening to what we're having to say right now.
Yeah, and most people, that's the way they
The
function
work
in the
environment,
world.
they have to have them.
And Phil, you're always asking one of your boys, what does that say on the river stage, or, whatever.
It's hard to function without them, but to Dad's point, you have to, they bring a lot of mischief. It's better if you can control it. And look, we spend a lot of time trying to control the environment, and I watch my kids do it, control the environment of their children, because it can become so consuming.
Yep.
I mean, my granddaughter got the she hadn't even literally wiped the sleep out of her eyes, and she's wanting to know where the computer was.
Oh, yeah.
The iPad.
Yeah.
And I said, go ask your ma'am. And I knew what was supposed to happen. And I hear, the Lisa coming down like the thunderstorm in there. We're not doing that. You're going, you can do this. You can. And then all of a sudden,
8 o'clock in the morning.
Everybody scampers off, and that was the end of that. But I knew what was going to happen but I thought that's how addictive they can become, that you literally can't even get woke up good.
Yeah.
Well, see, my rule is at my house.
I looked at that and I concluded what you did. I said, just seems like there's a lot of, I don't know what you call it, mischief going on
You
with
have
that
to,
particular device.
like anything else, it takes a lot of discipline and with them, because it's like anything else, it can become crazy. So back to Lisa's point. So I added in, if you're going to have openness and honesty, you have to have forgiveness. Dad mentioned it earlier. Because if you're going to have openness, that means you're going to be open about mistakes. And if you're going to be open about mistakes, you're going to have some venue like we do with the Almighty where we can extend forgiveness for mistakes. And here's the thing about it. If you can't extend it the way God does, but it's always harsh, then people won't be honest with you. Because it'll be easier for them to lie than be honest if you're going to respond like a thunderstorm every time they're honest. Lisa mentioned this couple we've been working with. This guy said, look, you got to be like the Almighty. If you don't foster honesty, if you're harsh every time there's honesty, she won't be honest. It'd be easier for her to lie.
Yeah.
So I was like, a lot of this depends on you. And I had to learn that the hard way. And so we mentioned that to this audience because we knew if you can get those two things going in the right direction where you can tell the truth and where you can say, I forgive you. And I told the audience, I said, the hardest words to say for most people is, I was wrong.
Yeah, I love it when men finally say it.
I was wrong, and please forgive me. And then the response is, I forgive you, and I love you. And those are hard things to say, especially when somebody's feelings are hurt. But if you can say those words and mean them and then live it, then you can usually rock and roll.
Yep.
And so, what a great thing to teach your grandchildren. And we've noticed that in our grandkids. Now that they're dating and having trouble and having breakups and all that, they have to learn that somewhere. And trust me, it doesn't happen by osmosis and natural.
No.
You're not going to learn that from the world.
No.
All you're going to learn is anger, bitterness,
Yep.
and difficulty. So, I mean, it's up to us to be able to teach them. And it's interesting because we're going to do questions. We're almost out of time. But one of the questions was, what's your advice for parenting young children to teen and adult? So that's exactly what we've been talking about. I mean, that is what you have to do to teach them that, right? And
when Phil went through his bad time when he didn't have the Lord in those 10 years, well, when I stuck with him, then everybody was mad at me because they said, leave him, leave him, leave him. And I said, no, my grandmother taught me to stay because that was what you were supposed to do. And you just pray and, God will fix it eventually.
Are you glad you did?
Yes. Are you glad I did?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love it when Mom goes to speak somewhere and she comes in and Dad says, well, Miss Katie, you throw me under the bus tonight. And she said, yep, but God got you out from under it.
He did. But nobody stayed. They just didn't live in it 10 years. I'm telling you. But I just would every day. And the only thing I ever felt so guilty about was that you, being the oldest one, had too much responsibility to me almost with your brothers because I would lose a lot of sleep waiting up for him to come in. That didn't come in till really, really daylight or something. And, there you were. But then I told you, I apologized, and you said that you didn't mind, and that probably made you a better person.
Yeah. Al, you came out of those years in a wonderful way. You added it all up.
I say it's a miracle of God because, I was raised on a college campus by teenagers initially.
And then,
I was on a college campus the other night, and I said that, and they all broke out laughing because I was like, look at yourselves. Would y'all be good at raising a baby here? And everybody started laughing. I was like, it's a miracle. I survived.
Well, and then we lived, for his first job, we lived on the road, and it took you 3 minutes to get up to Brother Layton and his wife, which he was a preacher, a retired one, I guess, and she was blind.
Yeah.
And you went every day there.
Yeah, that provided my church experiences and my Bible knowledge that I still use to this day. So I'm going to mention this in the last couple of minutes. I had it at the beginning and forgot. So we're talking a lot about age on this podcast and our age differences. And this is really interesting. So I come in this morning when I brought y'all some Chick-fil-A, and y'all were all three, and too, engrossed in watching Gunsmoke. and so Alex tells me, she said, it was interesting because when I heard Papa Phil talking about Matt Dillon, because he kept saying Matt Dillon, solves all the problems, and Matt Dillon does this, and Matt Dillon does that. And so she said she gets to talking with Maddie, who's our other girl that works here. because they're young. See, and they're like,
They don't know Matt Dillon.
well, they were trying to figure out, they thought he was talking about the actor Matt Dillon.
Oh, no.
And so they were like, what movies is Papa Phil talking about that Matt Dillon is in that he's like, he's such a big Matt Dillon fan? Talking about the actor,
Yeah, and this
Matt
was
Dillon,
wrong.
which Dad probably didn't even know who Matt Dillon, the actor,
No.
is. So, because they're young, so they weren't relating it to Gunsmoke. They've
See,
never seen Gunsmoke.
This show was actually made in the 50s.
So they're starting looking up all the movies that Matt Dillon has been in, trying to figure it out. And it just was comical because it shows you when you a difference in age. So you kept mentioning Matt Dillon, and then they finally put it together. Oh, Gunsmoke, the old Western,
Yeah.
is the character Matt Dillon. So I just thought we laughed about it when Alex was telling me.
All of those episodes, it's a picture of the 1950s.
Yeah.
And before then, they portray in the 1800s,
Right.
still Indian wars or whatever. But you look at it, every issue, I mean, from love, hate, add the knowledge, goodness, perseverance, godliness, brotherly kind. It's all in there.
Well, I walked in today and it was just silence. Like everything was just like they were locked in, like we were watching, like the latest movie.
Yeah.
And it was black and white Gunsmoke, but y'all were locked into it. I was chuckling because I was thinking about what we were talking about in the podcast today.
Yeah,
They're good though. I mean, they were timeless. It was like,
and they teach you really good lessons too.
Oh, yeah.
which is really good. All right, so I had a question, and I'm going to pose it, and then we don't have any more time, so we'll answer it in the overtime. So if you want to follow us over, you can hear the answer to it. But this person, Cindy, said they want to ask you this question, babe. Said, I'm trying to help someone who confessed to having an abortion. Many years ago, they were young, and their parents encouraged the abortion, and I guess they've heard your story. And now, years later, they feel deep regret and guilt, and so she's wondering what to say about it. And so, obviously, you have a lot of experience in that. So we're going to answer that in the overtime and maybe a couple more questions. So if you want to follow us over, this blazetv.com/unashamed. Thank y'all both for coming on. You're so much more elegant and thought-provoking than Jase, but we won't tell him that. So
No, we'll get an argument.
We're more fun.
that's right. There you go. So thank y'all for being on the podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by rating us on iTunes. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube, and be sure to click that little bell to get notified about new episodes. And for even more content that you won't get anywhere else, subscribe to Blaze TV at blazetv.com/unashamed.